From the heart of where innovation, money, and power collide in Silicon Valley and beyond, this is Bloomberg Technology with Caroline Hyde and Ed Ludlow.
Live from New York, I'm Caroline Hyde.
And I'm Mike Shepard in Washington. This is Bloomberg Technology.
Coming up, Meta's all in on AI with plans to boost capital expenditure to up to $65 billion in 2025. Plus a choppy start to chip earnings with global semi-stocks falling after Texas Instruments is the latest to underwhelm. And we'll be joined by Frank McCourt on the future of TikTok in the US and his bid for the social media platform. But first, we check in on these markets, Mike, which are still treading near record highs. The Nasdaq is up almost 2% over the course of the week, but we draw down a little bit as we, of course, see the weight of some chip stocks causing a little anxiety. Look at his industrial, automotive, end markets that still prove weak. Texas Instruments, again, following on from SK Hynix, which had a little bit of an underwhelming earnings report as well. They're seeing the smartphone weakness, but AI still really managing to drive forward. Broadcom is on the higher side when it comes to the stocks. Why is Broadcom up? Because of our next stock. Let's have a look at what's happening with Meta today, because they see from Mark Zuckerberg almost front-running his own earnings report next week to say that they're committed to spending on AI, data centers, people, infrastructure, and indeed we're starting to see it up 9%. We're at a record high for Meta. Let's get out to Kurt Wagner for more, because this is all about upping its capital expenditure to up to a whopping $65 billion.
Yeah, and that's about 50% more than what we saw in 2024, which was a big amount, 38 to 40 billion. And a lot of people a year ago, Caroline, were sort of worried, is Meta overspending here, right? And here they are jumping up even higher. I mean, I think you hit it right there, which is that this is an AI play, right? This is data centers. These are GPUs. This is, trying to keep pace with OpenAI and Microsoft and Google and all of these other companies that are investing so heavily. It's been a huge focus for Mark Zuckerberg over the last couple of years, and clearly will continue to be in 2025.
Kurt, we've seen some investors express concern about whether there is an overspend in AI, but today they seem to be giving a little bit of grace to Meta. Why is that in Meta's case?
Well, I think this is the most exciting technology that Meta could be investing in, right? If you're a Meta investor and you say, hey, what would you rather do? Have Mark Zuckerberg put $20 billion into AI or $20 billion into, the metaverse, right? And obviously those things are related. A lot of the AI technology will ultimately power the metaverse. But my point simply being is that I think this is the avenue where investors are okay with overspending, right? Even Mark Zuckerberg told our own Emily Chang last summer, hey, a lot of us are going to overspend, but that is a better outcome than, waking up 10 years from now and realizing you missed the boat on this whole thing.
Bloomberg's Kurt Wagner, thank you. And it was a big week for chip stocks as President Trump announced Project Stargate to help boost AI infrastructure. But weakness in traditional memory markets is limiting that euphoria. For more, we're joined by Peter Elstrom of Bloomberg. Thank you, Peter. Peter, we are seeing that this AI wave is not lifting all boats. Can you talk a little bit about what happened with SK Hynix and Texas Instruments, for example, and then more broadly?
Yeah, SK Hynix is a Korean company that doesn't get that much attention, doesn't get the kind of attention that NVIDIA does, but it's very related to them. NVIDIA makes the AI accelerators, and SK Hynix makes the memory chips that are paired with those accelerators to be able to run these AI models. So it's a pretty good bellwether of what's going on in the AI market. Now, its earnings results by almost any measure were quite strong. Revenue was up 75%. Their operating profit was up 20-fold, but it wasn't enough for investors. The shares actually declined about 3% yesterday. There's been some softness in that market, and that sort of sent some concerns throughout the market, including here into Europe and into the U.S. yesterday. It just goes to show how high the expectations are in this market. You would think that $65 billion in spending on AI would get you something of a rally in stocks, but that's not what we're seeing so far.
Yeah, only Broadcom really managing to garnering any love from that because it's a supplier to Meta. But so too is NVIDIA. That's on the downside. And maybe that's more in line with what we're seeing with Texas Instruments. It underwhelms on its numbers, but it's the end markets of autos, of industrials, of actually maybe where we'll see some tariffs being hit from China too.
Yeah, there are different kinds of concerns around Texas Instruments. They play a bit more into the traditional markets, as you say, into the auto market in particular. We could have tariffs impact some of those end markets. It's not clear exactly how that's going to spend. And also, Trump has been talking about rolling back some of the subsidies for EVs, which take a lot of these chips, too. So there's some softness in some more traditional size parts of the chip market here that may be impacting Texas Instruments, and overall just raising concerns about whether some of these valuations have gotten ahead of themselves from AI into some of these other areas.
Peter Elstrom, marrying the tech with the politics. We thank you so much on all things chips. Let's just stay on that politics element of things, though, because we are indeed about to speak with Michelle Giuda of the Krach Institute for Tech Diplomacy on how AI is really the tug of war between China and the US. Here we see live pictures of President Trump, of course. He is currently traveling to discuss some of the damage that has been caused by natural disasters of late, but we'll be listening in to his route to North Carolina. Stick with us for this. This is Bloomberg Technology. We need to get out to North Carolina right now, and we are going to be hearing from President Trump, who, of course, is currently visiting some of the impacted families from the hurricane. Let's listen in.
And we're going to fix it, and we're going to fix it as fast as you can. It's a massive amount of damage. FEMA has really let us down, let the country down, and I don't know if that's Biden's fault or whose fault it is, but we're going to take over and we're going to do a good job. We're going to assign Mr. Whatley, who's fantastic, frankly, and the governor and everybody else that's going to work. We're going to supply the money, supply a lot of the money. Maybe you have to chip in something. You'll chip in a little something, like maybe 25% or whatever. But we're going to get it done as quickly as we can. And we want to take care of the people of North Carolina. It's so interesting. Everybody's talking about California, and that's a mess. But I said, I'm not going to California until I stop in North Carolina. So here we are. We're going to go visit the site, and we're going to work with probably 3 of the congressmen, Republican congressmen, who've been fantastic, whose areas have been affected, and with Michael Whatley, the governor, and whoever else is, we decide to get involved. Probably less FEMA, because FEMA just hasn't done the job. And we're looking at the whole concept of FEMA. I like, frankly, the concept when North Carolina gets hit, the governor takes care of it. When Florida gets hit, the governor takes care of it, meaning the state takes care of it. To have a group of people come in from an area that don't even know where they're going in order to solve immediately a problem is something that never worked for me. But this is probably one of the best examples of it not working. And there's been some others, like in Louisiana, etc. So we're going to be doing something on FEMA that I think most people agree. I'd like to see the states take care of disasters. Let the state take care of the tornadoes and the hurricanes. It's a lot less expensive. You'll do it for less than half, and you're going to get a lot quicker response. So that seems to be the recommendation, but we'll be making that recommendation over the next couple of weeks. We're going to go to the site now, and we're going to figure out a plan for really demolition and cleaning, because not a lot's been done, and we're very disappointed in the Biden administration, but we're going to make up for lost time. And I said I'd do that, and this is about the earliest we could possibly be here, and we're honored to be here. This has been a great state. They're great people, and they've really been mishandled. But this group is going to be great, and we're going to get it taken care of. Any questions?
How will you respond to FEMA? Do you expect to ask Congress for additional aid for North Carolina and California?
It will be direct. In other words, the aid will go through us. So rather than going through FEMA, it will go through us. And I think maybe this is a good place to start. Because, and in all fairness to the governor, and in all fairness to everybody else, FEMA was not on the ball. And we're going to turn it all around. Yes.
A lot of Americans think that this is symbolic of what your campaign was all about. America first, putting your priorities to Americans, even going to California where their policies might been one of the biggest reasons why they've had these problems. But you're putting the American people first. Your thoughts on that?
We are. Thank you. I like that question. Boy, I want more questions like that. That's even a statement. Thank you very much. He's a good man, that guy. And he's also a very professional reporter, I have to say. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're putting America first. We're putting, in this case, North Carolina and California. We're going to do a good job in California. That is a disaster like, I don't know if we've ever seen anything like it, frankly. They say the biggest in the history of California. I think, has anything bigger than that happened in the whole country ever? It looks like, I don't want to say what it looks like, but you know what I'm going to say. It looks like something hit it. And we won't talk about what hit it, but it is a bad, bad situation. And I guess I'm going to meet with some government officials, but I mean, much more importantly, and in California, just to revert to it for a second, millions of gallons of water are waiting to be poured down through already the half pipes that are already built. I mean, they've been up for 40 years, and about 20 years ago, they turned off the water. And it's the water that comes from the Pacific Northwest. Some of it comes out of Canada, and it flows there, and it probably has flowed there for 1 million years. And they turned it off, and they routed out to the Pacific. And in the meantime, you don't have water in the hydrants. You don't have water in the sprinkler systems. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. And everyone's trying to figure out, why aren't they turning it back? They say it's the Delta smelt. It's a fish. But I find that hard to believe, but we'll figure it out. And without doing that, you're going to continue to have problems.
Mr. President, what are you prepared to do, sir, if OPEC doesn't respond to your call to cut oil prices?
Well, we want to see OPEC cut the price of oil, and that will automatically stop the tragedy that's taking place in Ukraine. It's a butchering tragedy for both sides, by the way. A tremendous number of Russian soldiers are dead. Tremendous number of Ukrainian soldiers, and a lot of people are dead from the bombing of the cities. But right now it's just bullets whacking and hitting men, mostly men, almost in all cases men. And they're over 1 million men are killed, and they're losing thousands of people a week. It's crazy. It's a crazy war, and it never would have happened if I was president. Would never have happened. This is crazy that it happened, but we want to stop it. Now, one way to stop it quickly is for OPEC to stop making so much money and to drop the price of oil, because they have it nice and high. And if you have it high, that war is not going to end so easily. So OPEC ought to get on the ball, and they ought to drop.
Funding to Los Angeles because of its sanctuary city policy?
I want to see two things in Los Angeles: voter ID, so that the people have a chance to vote, and I want to see the water be released and come down into Los Angeles and throughout the state. Those are the two things. After that, I will be the greatest president that California has ever seen. I want the water to come down and come down to Los Angeles, and also go out to all the farmland that's barren and dry. You know, they have land that they say is the equivalent of the land in Iowa, which is about as good as there is anywhere on earth. The problem is it's artificial, because they artificially stop the water from going onto the land. So I want two things. I want voter ID for the people of California, and they all want it. Right now you don't have voter ID. People want to have voter identification. You want to have proof of citizenship. Ideally, you have one-day voting, but I just want voter ID as a start, and I want the water to be released, and they're going to get a lot of help from the U.S. Thank you very much. I'll see you in a little while. We'll see you at the site. We'll see you at the site.
About the deportation flights, where are they going from? Where are they going to?
Deportation's going very well. We're getting the bad, hard criminals out. These are murderers. These are people that have been as bad as you get, as bad as anybody you've seen. We're taking them out first. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Move through the grass. Through the grass. Through the grass.
President Trump there speaking as he boards Air Force One in Asheville, North Carolina. visiting, of course, families affected by Hurricane Helene, but he spoke much more about Federal Emergency Management Agency wanting them to see less involvement in hurricane recovery and more state involvement when it comes to these sorts of natural disasters. Also speaking about OPEC, the view on cutting oil prices, and indeed he was speaking there a little bit about some of the immigration policies, and indeed once again criticizing some of the water policies in California. He plans to visit California next and regarding those LA wildfires. But Mike, we have much more on President Trump's policies.
Oh, we do. And he has these big ambitions for the U.S. to become an AI superpower, as we heard him talk about at Davos yesterday. This is touching off a global tech race. And we're joined by Michelle Giuda, the CEO of the Krach Institute for Tech Diplomacy at Purdue, to talk us through it. Michelle, we have seen this week the Stargate venture announced, and then Meta today talking about a big investment in AI and in data centers. Those are all private sector initiatives. Are they going to be enough to keep up with what rivals like China in particular are doing with state-driven investment?
Yeah, thanks for that, Mike. Well, I think what we're seeing in the first 5 days of the second Trump administration is that America first also means innovation first. And as you pointed out, there's a lot of momentum with private sector companies now stepping up their game to invest in the future of the United States, becoming what the president has said will be the world capital of artificial intelligence, the world capital of cryptocurrency. And that's really important because China wants to hold that title. And China is also pouring a lot of its own government money, billions and billions of dollars, into building out data centers, building out infrastructure. They're building 8 new massive data hubs. They're approving 10 nuclear power plants every year. They have a national initiative called Eastern Data, Western Compute. So to see private sector companies in the United States all of a sudden really cranking up their investment in this strategic capability for the United States is good news.
Michelle, you've talked in the past about the importance of democratic allies working together in this area of tech. Yesterday, also at Davos, we heard Donald Trump talking about tariffs and differences over regulation with the European Union. How does that complicate joint efforts to, say, counter China?
Well, you know, with trusted allies and partners, you can also be really honest, and there are honest conversations going on about what it takes to work together and to be effective economically, to be effective technologically in order to compete against China. And the innovation first approach is really interesting because the opposite of that, the alternative to that, is a regulatory first approach. And we've seen what happens with that. Just look at Europe. The report that Mario Draghi released just a few months ago outlined how painful it's become for Europe. They have to pay $800 billion a year just to catch up in terms of tech competitiveness. In 50 years, they haven't created a single company that's got greater than $100 billion market cap. All of their unicorns, a third of their unicorns, are fleeing the EU. So we have to change that because the Europeans, our friends in the Indo-Pacific, Latin America, all across the world are really important partners. So we need to be on the same page in terms of how we power innovation. At the same time, we are powering our national security.
Michelle, it's interesting that the previous administration and in the last days of the Biden administration did put some pretty tough focus on NVIDIA, for example, and its ability to export, particularly to China. How much might that hinder some of the very successful companies here in the United States with the ongoing geopolitical tension?
Yeah, I think we'll see some developments with the new Trump administration on where they're going with export controls. But remember, that started under the first administration, was carried forward by the Biden administration. We'll see where that goes. But I think you can tell that this administration is very focused on innovation and national security at the same time. So we've got to bolster U.S. and allied innovation and leadership so that we win and our values are represented in technology. At the same time, we can also protect our national security. And as President Trump said in his inaugural address, America can do the impossible. It's what we do. And to balance those two things with our allies, I think we're headed on a trajectory toward that.
But it takes time. These $100 billion of investment, up to $500 billion, can't go into the ground immediately to start getting data centers up and running. It takes years. And yet we might see an impact on goods coming from China in months. Is that a key issue? Is that a national security risk?
Well, I think this administration has signaled that this all needs to happen as fast as possible. They've used the word unleash many times, unleashing American energy, unleashing American innovation, declaring an energy emergency in order to really catalyze and accelerate what we're doing there. We're going to need so much more energy to power these data centers that power AI. OpenAI and Goldman Sachs, I think, had estimated we're going to need 50 gigawatts of new incremental energy in order to do that. We're dusting off old nuclear power plants. So you're right, that has to happen really fast. And the great part is that we've got private sector companies now on board that are going to turbocharge our effort.
Giuda, it's always great to have you on. The Krach Institute for Tech Diplomacy at Purdue, we thank you. Coming up, look, OpenAI is joining a growing number of tech companies betting on so-called AI agents. We're going to talk about what Operator is capable of and some of the concerns. This is Bloomberg Technology. Let's turn to the latest product out of OpenAI, the startup launching its AI agent. Of course, this is all regarding Operator. Apparently, it can book you flights, plan your grocery orders, even complete purchases for users. We're joined now by Bloomberg's Rachel Metz, who I'm told is wearing some lipstick that Operator already bought for you.
This is correct. I used Operator yesterday to do a whole bunch of different things, just trying it out really quickly to sort of put it through its paces. One of the things I did, well, actually, it relates to you. You were wearing a nice neutral shade of lipstick a few days ago that I happened to spot, and I asked Operator to pick out a neutral lipstick shade for me from Sephora and purchase it, and it did. And then I went to Sephora and picked it up, and I'm wearing it now.
Rachel, investors have been looking for this breakthrough functionality with AI. Are we getting any closer with this?
I think it's still a little bit tricky to tell, but it is very clear that they're putting a lot of time and resources into trying to figure out new ways that they can integrate these tools into people's lives. Operator is meant to be pretty general purpose, as you might have noticed from the way they were positioning it. You mentioned, Caroline, grocery orders. I think you might have mentioned planning flights. These are all like different things that the average person can totally envision doing themselves that they might not like doing, as opposed to some of the other agent type software that's already out there that's more aimed toward things like coding. I feel like we're definitely seeing this, the idea of this at least being spread as more of a mass market thing, even though Operator is only available to a small number of OpenAI's users who want to pay $200 a month for it as part of a larger service.
Almost beta testing, as it does tend to do. Rachel Metz, great to have you, and I like the way that you encompass that there is competition out there as well. Coming up, look, we're going to be joined by Frank McCourt from Project Liberty Action Network. We're going to be discussing the fate of TikTok in the United States, his bid, rival bids. This is Bloomberg Technology. Welcome back to Bloomberg Technology. I'm Caroline Hyde in New York.
And I'm Mike Shepard in Washington.
Quick check on these markets, Mike, because, look, we are at near record highs. The Nasdaq 100 is up almost 2% on the week. We just pulled back. It's chip stocks that are in focus as we underwhelm on Texas Instruments following SK Hynix's numbers. But Bitcoin up 2.8%. Remember, a flurry of executive orders that I know you've been watching, and key among them yesterday was the AI and the crypto order. Maybe we get some sort of overall Bitcoin reserve, but it's not a Bitcoin reserve, it's a digital asset reserve. And Bitcoin took a bit of a hit yesterday, but we're back at 106,000. Move on, individual names that you need to keep an eye on. We've started the earnings season, and Verizon is among them. We're currently seeing it up 1.2% as they managed to beat in terms of almost 500,000 being added for new phones. Tesla up 0.25%. They're having to put over an over-the-air update and basically technically recall Chinese cars. But here in the US, they're doing Model Ys new. Ericsson down 13% on the back of telecoms equipment not selling as expected, Mike.
Carol, let's turn to TikTok now. This is such a big issue in Washington. We're joined by Frank McCourt, executive chairman of McCourt Global and founder of Project Liberty, which had made a formal offer to acquire the social media giant less than 2 weeks ago, not long before the ban deadline. Frank, I wanted to start with the reprieve that President Donald Trump signed hours after taking office. How has that complicated efforts by you and other bidders, perhaps, to get ByteDance to come to the table to talk about a sale?
Well, it really hasn't complicated anything from our perspective, Mike. We just continue to, chug along, and we're prepared here. We're hanging around the hoops, so to speak, waiting for ByteDance to make a decision. And if it takes a little bit more time, so be it. But we feel we're in a really unique position to buy U.S. TikTok. We're the only ones that actually put a bid in and submitted to the Department of Justice before the original deadline, and we were ready to roll, and but for a signature from ByteDance. So we continue to be ready. We have more and more conversations. There's more and more excitement around this. We had a fabulous couple days in Davos where there was great excitement around the project. So, yeah, I remain optimistic, and I think we just have to give ByteDance time to sort this out. And but I believe they will. Buying U.S. TikTok without the Chinese technology is the way forward.
What have you heard back from ByteDance in response to this offer? Have they been engaging much at all? And would President Donald Trump be in position to perhaps help you get them to really get the discussions going?
Well, my hope is that President Trump can be, a deal maker here and help get this deal done by convincing ByteDance to actually sell U.S. TikTok and not shut it down. I mean, those are the two choices here. And ByteDance themselves have been pretty silent. I mean, they've acknowledged receipt of our offer, but I think, quite frankly, they're digesting everything. I think their hope originally was relief from the Supreme Court, which they did not get, as you well know. And now I think they're in a new reality. And so they're confronted with a shutdown or a sale. And we believe that a sale is the best way forward. It will keep the app lit up. And as I say, without the Chinese technology, why not sell?
Who have you been talking to? Where's the excitement in Davos?
It's interesting. We had a little house called Future House that on the promenade, and the promenade was lined with different AI products being marketed and so forth. It was the theme, really, of Davos this year. And Caroline, our house, Future House, had a long line outside.
Of people who want to invest with you, though, Frank? Are you speaking to Mr. Beast, for example? Because he's joined another consortium, it seems.
Well, Mr. Beast has joined all consortiums, so he's interested in keeping his options open. I've talked to Jimmy. Others have talked to Jimmy. You've read the reports that he has not aligned with a single bidder. But put that aside, I think the people that were really interested in, of course, interested in seeing what will happen with TikTok. But as I've said over and over again, this is an opportunity to actually reimagine how the internet works and give people ownership and control of their identity and their data and their relationships. And that's very exciting to people, and including, by the way, TikTok influencers.
And that is what sets you apart, the fact that you're building to a new tech stack, basically, and a decentralized one at that, Frank. What does it mean to potentially work with the US government? Would you want to have the US government also buying? In fact, talking of the US government, we're just going to have to listen in to President Trump. Just one moment, Frank, sit with us.
To help North Carolina get fixed up, they supported us in record numbers, and I'm supporting them in record numbers, too. And they had me set. I wanted to go to Los Angeles and see what was going on with California, why they aren't releasing the water. Millions and millions of gallons of water. They're sending it out to the Pacific. Someday somebody's going to explain that one. In the meantime, they have no water in Los Angeles where they had the problems. So we're going there. But I said, well, what about North Carolina? Well, you could do that. No, I can't. I said, we're stopping in North Carolina first, and then we're going to Los Angeles. And we just appreciate the outpouring of love that we've had here. Laura was, as you know, very instrumental in the campaign, and she lived here and is loved, and we appreciate it. And Michael Whatley has been incredible, wherever Michael is. Hello, Michael. Michael Whatley has been great, and your congressmen have been great. And what we thought we'd do is take a quick look around. First, we wanted to do this. I want to say that we're very disappointed in FEMA. Your new governor, it's not his fault. He's brand new to the whole situation. But we're going to work together with the governor. We're going to work together with the senators, but really we're going to work a lot with your congressmen, especially the three that are in the area, and Michael Whatley. And I'd like to put Michael in charge of making sure everything goes well. And Franklin Graham has been unbelievable. We've made a big contribution to Franklin, and we'll continue to do so. But I've been hearing nothing but praise for the job that Samaritan's Purse has done with Franklin. And we appreciate it. Where is Franklin? He's around here someplace. And that good-looking guy, he's always been a good-looking guy. His father was a good-looking guy, too, I'll tell you. We loved his father, right? I saw his father in the latter years, and I said, well, he doesn't have long to go. He was having a hard time, and he lived about 3 or 4 years after that, right? He was they say it was good stock. He had the ultimate good stock. But I want to thank you, Franklin. You've been fantastic here, and everywhere he goes, he's always the first one I see. People don't realize it, how good it is. A lot of people, they go, well, maybe it's for the people that he's got, and you guys know because you're here, but the people that he's got have done amazing work. So I just want to thank everybody. We're going to get over and take a look. We'll say a few words. I do want to introduce some of the people that we have, and our First Lady. We'll start with our First Lady. She wanted to be here because of North Carolina, and then I said, well, you can do that, but you're going to have to come to California, too. And she said, that's okay. And we got to fix that one up, too. You ever see anything like that one? It's, who would have thought that could have happened? So, Governor Josh Stein, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And
President Trump, North Carolina, of course, talking with those affected by Hurricane Helene. Please go to LiveGo if you have a Bloomberg terminal to hear more from that. We return to Frank McCourt, Executive Chairman of McCourt Global and founder of Project Liberty, which has a bid for TikTok. We were just asking you if you'd work alongside Trump. He's thinking about potentially having the U.S., the government, own a piece of TikTok.
Well, yeah, we absolutely want to work alongside President Trump, and I think he could be very, very helpful. I do think ultimately the U.S. TikTok is going to be in the hands of the private sector and totally disentangled from the Chinese technology. I think that's really clear in the legislation, and was made doubly clear on pages 5 and 6 of the Supreme Court decision, that their Congress is looking for a complete disentanglement. And that's, Caroline, what puts us in a unique position, because we have the tech stack. We've been building it for the last 5 years to move the user base and the data onto.
This is a story that will evolve. We thank you so much for your patience. Coming live from Rome, Frank McCourt, Executive Chairman of McCourt Global and founder of Project Liberty. We hope we will come back as the negotiations continue. Let's talk about how this is impacting TikTok users and the brands that use it. Rachel Tipograph, its founder and CEO, MikMak, is an e-commerce marketing platform for multi-channel brands. What did they make of the sudden going black? Did brands pull away from spending on TikTok?
It's been wild. January 18th, 10 p.m. New York time, we saw TikTok brand traffic go to 0%. It stayed that way for 15 hours. Traffic started to come back January 19th, 12:15 p.m. And for about 2 business days, it held at 0.5% of our traffic.
Wow.
In the last 2 business days, it has risen. It now represents around 15% of our total traffic. I've been coming on this show now for 2 years. You've heard me say TikTok typically is 35% of our traffic. Based on this meteoric rise in the last 2 business days, we at MikMak believe that we're going to get back to normal rates on Monday.
Rachel, what is the fallout for businesses that are tied in some way or another to TikTok from all the uncertainty surrounding whether it will continue, whether there will be a purchaser?
Yeah, so I think the delta between 15 and 35% is essentially all those Fortune 1000 brands that are feeling very skittish right now with the uncertainty on who's going to be the new parent owner, as well as just the overall view right now of the Supreme Court. They don't want to be held liable, and typically they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on that platform. So there is a large set right now of the Fortune 1000 brands that are just waiting to see what the outcome's going to be.
Rachel, they have to make decisions on where to allocate right now. We're just seeing some of your data. Who's winning?
Yeah, so these brands, they're heavily reliant, obviously, on their marketing budgets. It's how they drive demand generation and sales. So in the last, I would say, 2 weeks, we have watched spend move out of TikTok as well as Meta, we can circle back on that, into Alphabet, which is paid search, YouTube, DV360, and Pinterest. The reason why is that brands are looking for reach, conversion, and brand safety. Alphabet absolutely delivers on reach and conversion. They've made enormous efforts around brand safety since all of the challenges YouTube had in 2012. And then Pinterest, I've been on the show, I talked about it. It's a dark horse that no one talks about. It's the safest place on the internet. And brands are moving dollars there because Pinterest can drive conversion as well. So the big winners are Alphabet and Pinterest. The reason why we've also seen a decline in Meta traffic in the month of January has everything to do with the announcement Zuckerberg made 2.5 weeks ago. When he announced that fact-checking was going to be removed from the platform, brands once again felt skittish. Brands care about their long-term brand equity, their brand safety. And whenever a platform becomes political, they reallocate dollars to platforms that they have more confidence in their brand safety.
Rachel, we were just talking to a prospective bidder for TikTok. What does all this churn mean for its value and perhaps ultimate purchase price?
I'm personally skeptical of what's going to happen with this divestiture. If it goes into the hands of a new U.S. parent owner, TikTok is not TikTok without the algorithm. The community is based on the app automatically pushing you like-minded people. That's what makes TikTok so magical. With a new U.S. parent owner, if they can't replicate the magic of that algorithm, I know with significant confidence, people are going to move out of TikTok. We saw it in the last 2 weeks. It's so easy to build a new community and a new app. Will it be RedNote? Will it be Blue Sky? Will it be Pinterest? Only time will tell. And so I have trepidation on what's going to happen. From a brand advertiser standpoint, they're going to go wherever eyeballs and engagement are. So brands can move their dollars very easily. I think we've all seen that in the month of January. It's like trading on Wall Street. Media buying, you can move a dollar from one platform to the next in a second.
Rachel Tipograph, founder and CEO of MikMak, we thank you. More coming up next. This is Bloomberg. Now let's talk about OpenAI, SoftBank, and Oracle, and their plans to open the first data center associated with the $100 billion Stargate venture. Let's bring in Bloomberg's Brody Ford for more. Brody, there's been a lot of talk about this project that was heralded at the White House on Wednesday with President Donald Trump, and that included the prospect of a lot of jobs being created. But you've got some findings that suggest maybe that's not quite so.
Yeah, on Tuesday, Trump said 100,000 American jobs. OpenAI has doubled down on that number, but we got our hands on some documents from the government down there showing that there is a guarantee of a whole 57 full-time jobs. Obviously a far cry from the 100,000 range. Of course, when you build a data center, you're going to employ thousands of construction folks. Those jobs go away at some point, and then the people needed to keep things running, it's a much smaller number. This is just one project of what will likely be many, but it certainly kind of throws a bit of water on the idea that data center infrastructure is a massive long-term job creator for this country.
57 is so stark, Brody. And then we wonder what the $65 billion Capex coming from Meta is going to mean in terms of jobs, as well as the data centers here in the US. Just thinking about the players involved, though, Oracle. Now, Oracle's busy also potentially being thrown out there as a bidder for TikTok, but it's an infrastructure provider to TikTok. And I'm just interested about what you're hearing in terms of supporting TikTok when it comes to Oracle vis-a-vis Apple and Alphabet.
Right, we're in this interesting moment where Trump says, hey, it's cool, keep working with TikTok, we're going to figure something out. I go on my phone, I'm an Android user, I can't download TikTok, I already have it. Same thing with Apple. Oracle says, hey, you're paying us a lot of money to run your servers, we're gonna keep doing it, right? And so we had some exclusive details on that today, that going back even to 2021, 2022, TikTok was one of the most important early customers for Oracle's cloud. I mean, this is really kind of like close to their heart as it relates to them becoming a major infrastructure provider. Like, you know, we found that they had special code names for TikTok. They called it Telesys internally because it was so top secret. And so, I mean, this is a big business line. They're not going to want to turn that off unless they really have to.
Bloomberg's Brody Ford, thank you. Kara.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mike, it's time for Talking Tech. And first up, we're looking at shares of Twilio, as you see, surging today. The company reported preliminary fourth quarter revenue growth that topped analyst estimates. The software maker also announcing at its investor day that it authorized a $2 billion share-back plan. Plus, Databricks said it has raised more than $15 billion in funding from investors that include Meta and countries of Singapore and Qatar. The software maker now holds a valuation of $62 billion and says it plans to use the financing for investments, acquisitions, and international expansion. And shares of American Express, as you see, just trading off of their record highs today, at least. The credit card company reporting fourth quarter expenses that were somewhat higher than expected, even as profits increased 12% with higher than expected spending during the holidays. I talked with the CEO, Steve Squeri, and he's still committed to tech spending. He says that the business is becoming more and more digital and automated. We continue to invest in tech in a big way. Now coming up, how YouTubers have propelled Trump to a second presidency. More on that story next. This is Bloomberg Technology. Breaking news on Apple from our own Mark Gurman. This coming, so we understand a key executive, Kim Vorath, company veteran, will be moving to help whip the area of AI and Siri into shape. Vorath is a vice president, and she's in charge at the moment of program management. She's since moved to the AI and machine learning division, according to people with knowledge of the matter. Top deputy, therefore, to the AI chief, John Gianandrea. And all of this is, as we understand, the people are not publicly announcing it, but bolstering the AI vision of Apple, which many feel has been behind some of those technology peers. Let's talk about a peer, Alphabet. But let's talk about YouTube, because we want to do a deep dive now into the role played by some key YouTubers, in particular, some of the podcast makers that we understand have potentially helped propel the second administration of Trump. We want to get to Davey Alba, who has done an absolute beautiful deep dive for our big take on all of this. And Davey, just talk to us a little bit about why you were first interested in the likes of Joe Rogan and the role they played via YouTube.
Yeah, of course. You know, we started to realize that the power centers in media and tech were really shifting. And I think, you know, seeing Joe Rogan be at the inauguration and actually in the Capitol Rotunda over the past weekend is really symbolic of the shifting media landscape. We wanted to understand what kind of power he had and the messages that he and a cohort of other podcasters who are wildly popular on YouTube, what they put out. So we started to listen to these podcasts and ended up analyzing almost 1,300 hours of footage.
2,000 YouTube videos is what you watched over the last 2 years. How similar has the messaging been, briefly?
The messages have been extremely similar. There are overlapping talking points, and the way the podcasters painted a picture of America was that it's in a desperate place with soaring inflation, migrants streaming across the border, you know, public schools have gone too far with their gender policies. And it's just stunning to see how often these messages are repeated, and the fact that this became more political as the election neared.
Davy Alba, it's a must-read. We urge our viewers to go and see it. But that does it for this edition of Bloomberg Technology. Don't forget to check out our podcast. This is Bloomberg Technology.